Hello, listeners and viewers out there on the interwebs. I hope you come to my class. This hour, hot topics on verbling. Today's hot topic: would you pay taxes if you didn't have to? What do you think about that? Today we're going to read about, watch a report on, and debate a major issue and current event from around the world, all about taxes. Something very interesting happening in the United States. We'll talk about it in just a moment. But first, I'll give you a brief introduction as I like to do. My name is Jon-Eric. I'm your American teacher from New York City, hanging out today from Lisbon, Portugal, to bring you hot topics on verbling and 3 quick rules to help you in my class. Turn off, tune in, and open up. Turn off means turn off your microphone and keep it off until you speak. But please turn it on when you're ready to speak. Keep it off so that the classroom is relatively quiet. But also close the verbling window in the background when the Google Hangout starts. In fact, it's better to close verbling completely and just have Google open, because that way we won't get an echo. Rule 2, tune into the new words. Activate what you learned in the beginning of class by using it as actively as possible at the end, the conversation or activity part of our class. And rule 3, open up to your classmates. Relax and have fun. We're all here to learn. We're all respectful. It's a safe place to practice your English. So that's a bit about me. I'd like to know a little bit about you. Well, there I am. So, we've got a bunch of reservations today, but I don't see anyone in class, so I'm going to talk a little bit about this issue, and hopefully some of you out there would like to come in, like Mr. Luigi. Hi, Luigi. Why don't you come in? So we're going to talk about an issue which is a big, hey, look at that. I said, why don't you come in? And you came in. Look at that. Right on cue.
I was checking about the new service on verbling groups.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna create a group. You want to learn Portuguese? I'm gonna create a Portuguese group.
Really?
Really, I am.
Good.
I'm gonna create advanced Portuguese so that I can improve my Portuguese. I could walk outside, right? But that's too easy. I wanna. I just want to do it on.
But how long have you been in Portugal?
Way too long. Way too long. I came and I left, and then I left again. Then I came back. Then I went to school. Then I had to leave, and then I came back again. So a long time. Years. Decades. I've been here since the 19th century. What do you think?
19th century.
A long time. Where are you?
I'm from Brazil.
I know. Where?
Rio.
You're from Rio. You're a carioca.
See.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. We have to do a class on Rio because you've got what's happening in 2014. It's the World Cup, isn't it? No, it's the Olympics. It's the Olympics too, right?
No, the World Cup. 2016.
And
2016 it will be the Olympics Games.
Oh, okay. So it's not at the same time. Brazil's a very lucky country now. All kinds of interesting things happening. Well, listen, Luigi, we are going to talk all about taxes. I have a question for you. My question is, I think I have it there in my warm-up. Oh, do you have the document? If you don't, let me share it with you. I'm going to share it with you in the chat window. There you go. And Mr. Kareem, who's out there in the chat window, why don't you come into class? Okay? But if you're not, you can always just click on that document. By the way, in the Google chat, you've got it there as well. So my warm-up question is, what images spring to mind when you hear the word tax? What images, what do you think of? What does that make you think of when you hear the word tax? Talk to me, Luigi.
Tax is something you have to pay. It's like a tribute.
Interesting. What do we tribute? Normally, you think of tribute like, they're going to do a concert, a tribute concert for, you know, I don't know, Ray Charles or something, right? To
Oh
honor.
no, it's not the right word.
Oh, maybe it is
It's
the
not.
right word, but I'm just wondering, what are we honoring? What's the tribute for? What are we honoring? Maybe
No,
it is.
actually, I mean tribute is synonym with tax, but it's not.
No, it's not a synonym. No.
But it's something we have to pay to because the government need all the citizens paying the tax to balance the investments
Yeah.
in their politics to try to improve the public service, try to improve the infrastructure inside the country, try
Wow.
to.
You're way ahead of the politicians. So you actually think there's a purpose to this, and you have a clear purpose too. So the purpose is to improve the infrastructure of the country.
Yes, and to in the country offer the better service, better public service like education, improve the health system, security,
So
and other things.
all the things that are sound like their rights as citizens, right? What are the taxes like in Brazil?
We have to pay tax for the three levels, the three government levels, to the city,
Hmm.
to the state, and the federal taxes.
So you have to pay municipal taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes.
Yes.
Okay. And
It's in the directly way,
Mhm.
but have the indirectly way to pay taxes when you buy something. There is taxes inside the price, but it's not. We have directly and indirectly taxes to pay.
Okay. And how's that working out for Brazil? Is it working out well? Are people paying?
Yes, because all of us are obligated to pay, and
All of
if
us,
you
listen, Luis, all of us are obliged to pay.
obliged,
In
obliged.
American English, you'll hear people say obligated, but some people think that that's not really a word. So if you want to be safe, we're obliged to pay. Obliged.
Obliged.
Um,
Oh, okay. And if you didn't pay, you you have problem
you have problems with what?
with the justice.
With the justice? What do you mean? The Justice Department, or you mean the police? You mean you're gonna go to
Depends
jail?
of the level. No, in the first moment you don't go to the jail.
Mm.
Depends of the tax. It's complex thing. The tax, the city tax, you don't go to the jail, but you have problem with the justice.
Mm. Well, on that note, I have something interesting for you to watch, because apparently, Luigi, it's going to be me and you this hour. I don't know where
Oh,
everyone else
really?
is. Apparently, there was a bunch of tickets for the class, but I don't know. I don't see anyone. Just me and you. So, on that note
Oh,
about justice, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna play a video for you. It's a short interview, and I want you to tell me what you think about this. And hang on a second. For those of you out there on the chat, I guess I'll be nice and give you the link as well. There's the direct link to the video we're going to watch. So accept the YouTube app for me, Luis.
yes, I am in YouTube app.
Okay, great. And so I'm gonna play. It's a short video. It's just a minute and a half. Tell me your reaction. Tell me if you understand what happened to this guy, and tell me if you know who he is. Okay?
Okay.
I, I like this clip because he never says what he's talking about.
Yes, I was thinking here. What's the subject?
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think happened to this guy? Do you know who he is?
Wesley Snipes,
Exactly.
the Hollywood actor.
Have you seen any of his movies?
Yes, I've already seen. But I think he was speaking about, or he was talking about some character,
No, he
some
wasn't. He was
movie
talking about himself.
himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about himself. Yeah.
But
So,
when the images when he was walking with
mhm,
a suit with a different hair,
yeah.
it was not a character.
No,
It's
no,
himself.
he is a character. In real life, he's a character. So, what do you think he's describing? What would you imagine he was describing, thinking about our topic for today? If you had to make an educated guess.
He he was describing about
Use your imagination a little bit.
well, he was describing about a big guy who everybody show for everybody paid
Hmm.
attention.
That's right. It was a big guy, and everyone made a really big deal about it, right? So the guy he's describing is himself, and the interview you see is because he just got out of jail.
Every
And the images you saw where he was dressed is that's like leaving court. Wesley Snipes recently got out of jail after 4 years because he did not pay taxes. And he's a Hollywood actor, so they signed contracts for millions of dollars, and he didn't pay taxes. Um, the very first thing he said was that this is a problem. This goes back. The guy he was talking about was himself, right? I can't believe they made a big deal out of this. I'm just I'm an actor. I'm not a politician. I didn't create a cure for cancer. How could this be such a big deal? And what he's talking about is that a Hollywood actor didn't pay his taxes, and they made a public spectacle of him. They made an example. So, do you think it's fair that a Hollywood actor who earns millions of dollars should go to jail for not paying his taxes? What do you think, Luis? Do you think it's fair?
Uh, it, it's not fair. He didn't want to pay the taxes, but about the punishment, if everybody have to go to the jail because of that, I'm not sure about this.
Hmm. Well, let's keep that in mind because we've got a short article to read, and I want us to, or I want you, because no one else is in class, I want you to compare Wesley Snipes' situation with the people you're going to read about in the article. The article is really short, actually, so it's more just for us to have a discussion. So I'm going to give you, oh, I gave you the link, right? So open that link
Yes.
if you don't have it, and I'll
Yes.
quickly share my screen. There we go. Okay. And if you want the direct link, it's there under links. It's from Quartz magazine. If you had a bank account in the Cayman Islands, why would you pay taxes on it? Do you know anything about the Cayman Islands? Have you heard about what makes them special in the business world? Good old Cayman Islands.
Criminal Islands.
Yeah. Have you heard about them?
Ah, Cayman Island. Yes, sure.
What
Here
makes them
is.
special?
Yeah, yeah. Is the place where someone wants to. Uh, how can I say? Don't want to pay the taxes and want to hide
Right.
his money. Hide his money. He send the money abroad for this
Uh-huh.
island.
Right.
It's
So
a
I've got
fiscal paradise. In Brazil, we call.
there you go. A fiscal paradise. Look, I've got a little link to Wikipedia, which you were just looking at. I'll post it for you. And in the Wikipedia article, it's good because you can see how to say Paradisio Fiscal in English, which is right here. This is a major, do you see this here? A major world offshore financial center. Offshore.
Offshore.
Right. Well,
Financial.
actually, you're saying in Portuguese, it's you say paraíso fiscal,
See, yes.
yeah? So in English, there's another word for that. Paraíso is haven, tax haven. And it's not
Oh,
heaven. It's not heaven like seal. It's haven, well, actually, we're going to see this in the article. But anyway, another way to say that is offshore. And you can see that in the Wikipedia article. So let's read this short article together, and you'll notice some words in bold. These are the words that I want you to use when we decide what we think about the tax situation. You're going to use these words because they're good vocabulary words. All right, so if you have any questions about the words in bold, just let me know. But let's read the
okay.
article. It's just a few paragraphs, and then we're going to compare Wesley Snipes to the people being described in the article. Okay, so
Okay.
when you're ready, go for it.
Okay. Text. Michael Froman, President Obama's nominee to be the next U.S. Trade Representative, found himself in political hot water today because of investments in the Cayman Islands, a that
Haven.
President tax haven that President Obama has criticized.
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 Good.
Criticized. Similar investments by Treasury Secretary Jack Lew put a
Wrinkle.
wrinkle in his confirmation process too.
Great. So if you don't know what wrinkle is, it's going to be hard to understand this paragraph. Let's look at the words in bold real quick. Why did he find himself, it's not why, but what do we mean by hot water? He found himself in hot water. Do you know that expression?
No.
If you're in hot water, like you're a lobster in hot water, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a bad thing.
Because what do we do with lobsters?
It will be cook,
Yes.
boil.
So who's cooking in the media right now? Who's cooking in the media? Obama's nominee for trade representative is cooking in the media. He's in hot water. Is that clear?
Okay.
In other words,
It's like he's in evidence.
it's like he's what? I'm sorry?
In evidence.
Evidence? What do you mean by evidence?
Is everybody pay attention on him?
Yeah. Okay. He's in the spotlight. He's in the spotlight. We have that
Spotlight.
expression. In the like that. In the spotlight. You're right. Everyone is paying attention to him, and more than that, he's cooking. He's boiling in hot water. In other words, it's not comfortable. So, we can connect that with the other word in bold, wrinkle. Similar investigations by Treasury Secretary Jack Lew put a wrinkle in his confirmation process. Look up here for a second. If the confirmation process is smooth, if it's smooth, it's flat, right? What do we call this? Not smooth, but this. What do you think? What's the opposite of smooth?
Smooth.
Yeah. Smooth is suave.
Is hard.
Well, yes, it's difficult, hard, like difficult, absolutely. If you
Heavy.
don't hard,
No.
heavy,
No,
and we
heavy.
use a descriptive word too. You could say bumpy, bumps in the road, or bumpy, right? And so we got the same thing with wrinkle. A wrinkle is a bump, but look here. This is a wrinkle in your clothes. These are wrinkles. So when you don't iron your clothes, you have wrinkles. It's another way to say that the process to get him into power, instead of being smooth, was not so easy. It was bumpy, wrinkled, difficult. Yeah? Clear, more or less?
Okay.
All
yes.
right. Okay, so I'm not going to stop you. I'd like you to read the whole article because it's just like 5 paragraphs, I think. But I want you to stop if you have any questions or if you want to clarify something. Okay?
Okay. Both men whose investments were part of their compensation for work at Citigroup say they have reported all their earnings to the IRS and paid the appropriate taxes, which raises the question: if you are not dodging taxes,
Wait a second. Dodging.
why the heck would you put your investment vehicle in the Caymans?
Yeah, that's a rhetorical question, and the whole article kind of centers around that question. If you're not dodging taxes, why would you put your money in the Cayman Islands? The purpose, it's a fiscal paradise, as you said, a tax haven. So that's the rhetorical
Okay.
question that they're asking.
Okay. The answer may have less to do with avoiding their taxes and more to do with helping cities' clients avoid theirs.
Right. So now we're going to try to figure out the reason why these politicians would have their money, these politicians who used to work at Citigroup, why they have their money in the Cayman Islands. Maybe it's got less to do with them. So far, so good? Everything is clear?
Yeah, dodging taxes.
Dodging
It means
taxes. If I throw something at you, right, it's going to hit you unless you do what? Clear? If I pick up my shoe and I throw it at you, remember George Bush when he had the press conference and the guy threw the shoe at him?
Yes.
If I throw a shoe at you, it's going to hit you in the head unless you do what?
Unless I protect myself.
And the easiest way to protect yourself is that. What do you call that?
Step left or step right?
Step out of the way. Out of the way. So to step out of the way is to dodge. That's it. Step out of the way equals dodge. So it's the same thing. Step out of the way or dodge. So that's it. They're dodging taxes. Are they paying taxes? Luis, are they paying taxes?
I think not.
You're right. They're not. Of course not.
He's dodging.
They're dodging.
His taxes.
That's it. They're dodging it, meaning that they're stepping out of the way. So they put their money in the Caymans, and apparently no one can find it anymore. It doesn't have to be reported. All right. So are you ready? Want to continue, or do you want me to read? I prefer to have you read, but it's up to you.
Yes, I can.
Go for it.
Continue. It's likely that the tax dodgers weren't Froman or Liu, but non-U.S. investors in the same funds who were trying to avoid paying taxes. It's foreign investors put their money in a U.S. Hedge or private equity fund. Their earnings are considered effectively connected income, which requires them to file tax forms. While they might not have to pay U.S. taxes, the compliance is extra.
Wait. The compliance.
The compliance is extra work, and more importantly, that financial data could be shared with their home country, which might tax their income itself.
Right. So you have to know what a hedge fund is in order to understand this paragraph. Well, it helps to understand what it means. Do you know what a hedge fund is, or an equity fund?
No.
Did you study? What did you study?
I study biology.
Biology. Okay.
It's not economic. I'm not economicus.
It's not going to help too much.
Studied. Yes.
Well, if you study biology and you know a little bit about Darwin, it'll help you understand a bit about world economics and finance, because you've got the survival of the fittest. But a hedge fund comes from the idea. In English, we have the word hedge. Well, first of all, if you have a property, what do you put around the property to keep people out or to keep something in? How would you describe that thing you put around the property?
It's like a wall.
It's like a wall, right. So a hedge is a wall, but it's made out of a bush, arbusto. It's made out of a bush or a tree or something. So it's sort of like, the old mazes, the old labyrinths made out of a bush. You can walk through the labyrinth, the maze, in like some medieval place. So it's that. It's a wall made out of something green, something alive. And it stops, your pets from running away, and it stops people from coming in. It's a hedge. So a hedge fund has this idea of protection. We have the expression also to hedge your bet. To hedge your bets. A bet in Portuguese is apostar, to bet on a horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to hedge your bet means that you can put all the money on the horse, but in some way you're not going to lose it. Maybe you put your money on two horses, and one of them is going to win, you think. So you're hedging your bet. In other words, you're reducing what? What are you reducing if you hedge your bet? A synonym is to
The,
reduce
the risk
the
of to
risk.
lose.
That's it. So a hedge fund is a special fund that somehow is risky, but it's meant to reduce the risk because you're hedging your bet in some way. They've invested in such a way that you can't lose. Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but I just want to connect it to the meaning of the word hedge, which is to reduce risk in some way. Okay, so with that in mind, let's see if that paragraph makes sense. It's likely that tax dodgers, sorry, it's likely the tax, I can't read, it's likely that the tax dodgers weren't Froman or Lou, but non-US investors in the same funds who were trying to avoid paying taxes. So that's a little bit hard to understand. They're trying to say that those guys that are in the government that Obama is trying to nominate to be in high positions, it's probable that it's not their money. Maybe some of it is their money, but some of it is these people who are investing with them so that the fund is really big. They're sharing a fund together. Does that make sense?
Yes.
How do you say fund in Portuguese, by the way?
Fund
Yeah.
can be fundo.
Oh, you can say fundo. Okay.
Fundo de investimentos.
Okay, it's the same word. Okay. Because there was another word, but I forgot what it was, like verba. What's verba?
Verba.
Yeah.
Verba is like a bunch of money that the government invests in something.
Okay, so for us that's fund as well. That's why I was getting confused. I actually forgot that you could say fund in Portuguese. Okay, so you understand what a fund is. It's an investment, basically, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so, all right, I'm going to stop interrupting you. Let's read until the end, and then we'll talk about the article, and then we'll have a little debate and see if Wesley Snipes is being treated fairly. Deal?
Okay.
Okay, so continue, please.
But if city registers the fund in the Cayman Islands, it
The
isn't
fund, by the way, the fund.
the fund
Yeah, good.
in the Cayman Islands, it isn't required to file any paperwork with the IRS, even though it is managed from the US.
Right. By the way, remember, IRS doesn't mean the same in Portuguese that it means in English. IRS means the department that collects the taxes, the finanças. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That way, the US government won't know that foreign investors are receiving an income. The same
Applies.
the same applies to any US investors investing through an anonymous offshore corporation.
And remember, offshore is another way to say paraíso fiscal.
See,
Because
offshore.
it's offshore because there's different laws outside of the country. So offshore can mean we can hide the money in some way. Okay, keep going.
Okay, skirting disclosure means more money for the fund and more fees
Fund.
for cities. Fund
Yeah,
and
not
more
found, but fund.
fund
Mm-hmm.
fund for the fund and more fees for city, according Rebecca Wickens, Chief Counsel at Citizens for Tax Justice. In 2008, City had 427 subsidiaries
Subsidiaries.
subsidiaries
Good.
in tax
Uh-huh.
including
Haven.
tax havens, including 90 in the Cayman Islands. What I think is going on is this fund no, fund
Fun.
fund is attracting a whole bunch of capital. It must include foreign investors, say Jennifer Blowing, an accounting professor at the Wharton School of Business. The US employees who are responsible for the success of this fund get a cut as part of their compensation package, and it just happens to be a Cayman fund. As a US citizen, they
As a
have to
U.S. citizen,
US as a US citizen, they have to report it. That explanations gives with
this
Froman
is jibes, a jibe.
jives.
Yeah.
That explanation jibe with Froman and Liu's jobs at Citi. Froman managed investments in foreign infrastructure and worked as the head of emerging markets strategy, while Lee managed a variety
A variety
of investment funds, including those in the Caymans, as the COO of the bank's Alternative Investments Group. This doesn't undercut critics of Obama who argue that hiring the two men while
Yeah.
hiring the two men while shaming tax evaders in hypocritical, but at least hypocritical, but at least it makes more sense.
Okay, great. So this is kind of this is short, but you know it's a bit technical. So what I'm going to do is, since it's short, I'm going to read it very quickly, and I want you just to follow along and think about what it says, because maybe when you're reading, it's hard to pay attention to the content. Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I read, you follow along. I'm going to read in my normal, the way I read for myself. I'm not going to slow it down. Okay?
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Michael Froman, President Obama's nominee to be the next U.S. trade representative, found himself in political hot water today because of investments in the Cayman Islands, a tax haven that President Obama has criticized. Ooh, that's an important point. Similar investments by Treasury Secretary Jack Lew put a wrinkle in his confirmation process, too. Both men whose investments were part of their compensation package, their compensation for work at Citigroup, say they have reported all their earnings to the IRS and paid the appropriate taxes. Which raises the question, if you're not dodging taxes, why the heck would you put your investment vehicle in the Caymans? The answer may have less to do with avoiding their taxes and more to do with helping Citi's clients avoid theirs. It's unlikely that the tax dodgers weren't Froman or Lew, but non-U.S. investors in the same funds who were trying to avoid paying taxes. If foreign investors put their money in a U.S. hedge fund or private equity fund, their earnings are considered, quote, effectively connected income, unquote, which requires them to file tax forms. While they might not have to pay U.S. taxes, the compliance is extra work, and more importantly, that financial data could be shared with their home country, which might tax the income itself. That means double taxation, right? Two people, two countries taxing. But if Citi registers the fund in the Cayman Islands, it isn't required to file any paperwork with the IRS, even though it is managed from the U.S. That way, the U.S. government won't know that foreign investors are receiving any income. The same applies to any U.S. investors investing through an anonymous offshore corporation. Skirting disclosure means more money for the fund and more fees for Citi, according to Rebecca Wilkins, the chief counsel at Citizens for Tax Justice. In 2008, Citi had 427 subsidiaries in tax havens, including 90 in the Cayman Islands. What I think is going on is this fund is attracting a whole bunch of capital. It must include foreign investors, says Jennifer Bowen, or Bowen, I guess, an accounting professor at Wharton School of Business. The U.S. employees who are responsible for the success of this fund get a cut as part of their compensation package. And it just happens to be a Cayman's fund. As a U.S. citizen, they have to report it. This explanation jibes with Froman and Liu's job at Citi. Froman managed investments in foreign infrastructure and worked as the head of emerging markets strategy, while Liu managed a variety of investment funds, including those in the Caymans, as the COO of the bank's alternative investments group. This doesn't undercut critics of Obama, who argue that hiring the two men while shaming tax evaders is hypocritical, but at least it makes more sense. Well, I'm not sure if that makes any more sense for me. What about you? So, what part of, let's try to just clarify the text, make sure it's really clear. Can you sort of sum it up in your own words? What's at stake here? What's the general idea?
Yeah, I think the text is talking about two guys, important guys in the United States. I think Obama wants to nominate for an important job in the government.
Like to be the U.S. trade representative, the person in charge of trade with other countries, and to be the Secretary of Treasury, to be in charge of the U.S. Treasury, right? The people who control the money.
They are involved in some special way to investor.
Exactly. We call that special interests. They seem to have special interests. They worked for a bank. They worked for the same bank, Citigroup. You're right so far. Sounds good. So,
but I think this kind of investments involves offshore evade some money.
Right, they're invading, reporting their income in the offshore account. What they're evading is paying and reporting it. If they don't report it, they don't have to pay it. So you're right to use the word evade.
It's a kind of investment that someone like to do. I think. Let me see. Yeah, it's a fund is attracting for bunch of foreign investors.
That's right. And so the article is trying to point out that even though it looks bad, it might not be as bad as it seems. So I think that's what the article is trying to say. It's a little confusing for me too, because I don't know, what do I know about finance? I mean, the finance world is not clear to anybody, because that's how if it was clear, everyone could do it. It's quite involved. So it's not 100% clear to me, but I think that what they're trying to say here is that although it looks bad, there might be an explanation. And the explanation is this part. It's likely that the tax dodgers weren't Froman or Liu, but non-U.S. investors in the same funds who are trying to avoid paying taxes. So in some way, to be honest with you, I don't quite understand the point, and I'm a native speaker, so it's not.
It's not clear because I don't know if it's right. Someone who works for for a private bank can work for the government as
Oh
well.
my God, welcome to the United States, Luis. Of course you can, because everything is private and everything is supposed to be private in the United States. Of course you can. Should you? Probably not. Um, Here's a case in point. Remember the global financial crisis? Remember that?
2008.
Yeah. Well, Brazil came out pretty well, but the rest of the world has not done quite as well. But Brazil always was, has a lot of resources. Europe is doing pretty badly as a result. But why did that happen? Do you know the story? I'm not going to go into the details, but do you know the story about how that
Yes,
started?
many banks broke up, and
Well,
and
yeah.
uh,
What do you mean?
and the people who was buying or was paying for a house,
The people who were paying for houses, yeah, who
the
were
people
paying.
who were paying for house, uh, suddenly the price decreased too
Oh,
much.
right, right, right. Not the price, but the value decreased. The prices maybe even increased, right? It their payments increased, the price that they had to pay. But you're right, the value decreased suddenly in the housing market. Yes, that's true. That's exactly right. And here's the thing. Why did that happen? Do you know? Because that,
Because I remember a word called subprime.
yes,
I
subprime
think
loans.
it's it's not fake credit, but it's a bad credit.
Exactly, bad
It,
credit.
it's high risk
High risk.
to.
Well, and that's the point. So, Luis, what happened was high risk loans were sold to companies, to people, to investors, to countries as if they were not high risk. They were subprime, but they were backed by a AAA rating, AAA, the best rating you can get from the rating agency. And the rating agency, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is exactly what we're talking about. The rating agency was filled with people from Goldman Sachs, the investment group. But why should you have people from a bank also, or who used to work in a bank, then work for the rating agency who regulates the banks? That's the question. Why is that fair? And that's what happened. It's not that they were working at that moment for Goldman Sachs, but the point is that they were, or then they return back to the private sector after their job. Well, the rating agencies, I guess, are private too. But the point is, there was no separation between the banks and the rating agency, so they could just decide, oh, this is good. And then the problem was they were sold, and then the problem was that the people couldn't pay their loans. Everyone realized they couldn't pay their loans, and suddenly the value decreased because everyone realized, wait a second, we're not going to get our money back. We've loaned all this money out to people. We're never going to get it back because they can't afford to pay it. And that created a kind of a crisis. By the way, is that clear what I'm saying, more or less? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And just one last point. Uh, then I'll let you speak. One last point.
Actually, I think because in United States in that days, uh, didn't have agents for control the banks, control the ratio of the loans, the
Well,
credits.
the
The
point is
banks
the point for
loans
me
a
is that
lot.
the point for me is yes, you're probably right. They weren't controls, but there were supposed to be controls. It's just that there was a conflict of interest. This is a good vocabulary word. Conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is when you work for the bank and you are also controlling the bank. You can't have it both ways. It's you're going to make decisions which are good for you, not good for your investors, not good for your people, your constituents, not the constituents, the consumers. So that's what happened. But you're probably right. There was not enough controls. Let me point out one last point. Before Bill Clinton left office, remember President Bill Clinton, Bubba? That guy?
Yes,
Yeah. Uh,
before George Bush.
yeah. Before all hell broke loose. Uh, he did one interesting thing, which is that he repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, and that was a law set up during the Great Depression to stop banks from being able to have complete control and do what they wanted. It was a kind of a hedge. Remember the word hedge? It was kind of a hedge against people, against private interest. So basically, the banks had to operate as banks. They could not take your private money and invest it in what they wanted. You had to be informed. So Bill Clinton, his administration repealed or helped repeal the Glass-Steagall Act, or at least it happened. He could have vetoed it, but he didn't, if I remember right. So that's kind of how all this got started, if you want to know. At least that's what I remember. I haven't really studied this, but that's what I remember from the time. And so from that point, so from the Great Depression until 1997, maybe, we had protection which would stop banks from taking your personal money that you put in your savings account and throwing it out the window on Wall Street or making crazy bets. So that was repealed, and they could do what they want. And then, in 2008, we saw what happened. And the government had a policy of promoting housing as well, because the economy was in trouble with George Bush because of the wars. We couldn't afford to pay for them. The things were not being funded well. So George Bush was against tax, like all of them. So all these things were going on, and meanwhile, banks could do what they wanted, and in fact, they still can. Okay, so that's just a little bit of background that I remember. I wanted to share with you, but I want to talk about this. So, what about Wesley Snipes? I mean, do you think it's fair? Wesley Snipes went to jail for like almost 5 years, right? He just got out of jail, and he's completely broke. He's a Hollywood star who earned millions with his, he made some good movies and he made a lot of bad ones, but he made a lot of money, and it's all gone. And then the Secretary of Treasury is part of this secret fund in the Cayman Islands where he doesn't have to report his income. Does that seem fair to you?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know that Wesley Snipes was in a jail.
He
But
really went to jail, yeah. That's what you were seeing in the interview when he got out. He was talking about the
yeah,
result.
I think because of that he disappeared from the movies. I've never seen any move, any production or any film with him. Because of that, I didn't know that he's in jail. But I didn't know he lost all his money.
As far as I know, I mean, I don't read the celebrity gossip too much, but as far as I know, he went bankrupt from trying to fight the government or something. And I think the people, his lawyers, took a lot of money too, because he was told by his lawyers that he could get away with what he's doing because he was doing it as a protest. And something there was wrong. Because there's plenty of people who don't pay tax as protest. But didn't work with that guy. So he apparently did something wrong. So I think he got
But
bad legal advice.
but 4 years ago, it was happened the crisis.
Right.
I was thinking about the people in America, in the United States, because people didn't have money or enough money to pay the taxes because everybody was involved in keep your in pay, I don't know, pay food, pay the light taxes, pay light bills, pay the gas, pay the school, pay the books. I don't know if the American people in that days uh, could pay. All people could pay the taxes
Well, you're
because
right. You're right. If they can't pay for their rent or they can't pay their mortgage, how can they pay taxes? You're right. It was a serious problem, and
I think a lot of
they
people
didn't. A lot
went
of
to
them
the
didn't.
jail.
Yeah. Well, they
A
didn't
lot
go
of
to
people.
jail necessarily, but they ended up without a home. a lot of people, like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I don't have an exact number, but you're absolutely right. It was a huge problem. And then to make matters worse, they found out that in many cases, the banks did not follow due process of law. Do you know what that means? Due process of law. Have you heard that
Two.
expression? Do like this. Do like DUE. Due process. Process. Due process of law. In other words, due process means to file the right paperwork and get the right permission. And they found out that many banks did not go through due process of law, and therefore people lost their houses and no one knows, and the banks didn't prove that they owned the house. So a bank ordered the police to seize a house. This happened, I mean, there's thousands of cases like this in the United States, that the bank ordered the police to seize a house, which is already like, you know, how can they do that? But it happened. And then they found out later that the bank didn't really own the house. So because the paperwork hadn't been filled out and because they hadn't proved that in fact that the values had worked out, that they owned the house. So you're absolutely right. It's a huge mess, and it's still a mess. So
Yes.
there you go. Lucky you're in Brazil, right?
Yes. Yeah, we didn't have this kind of problem here.
No, you've got other
But
problems.
we have other problems.
You've got those favelas. How's that working out?
Actually, I think in English is slums, isn't it?
Slums, yeah.
Slums.
Like the movie Slumdog Millionaire.
Yes, slumdog. Actually, the slums here in Rio, we have poor people, but actually it's not a real problem. The problem is the drug dealers, the police corrupted,
Right, the corruption.
the corruption of the police. I think the problem is that we have a part of the police has behaved like a thief,
Right.
like a drug dealer. Is not the problem is not the slum. There are people that like to work, have the families, good people living there, but they are poor people.
Right.
But the problem is the crime, the drugs, the weapon trade, the drug trade. That's the big problem in Brazil.
Well, let me ask you a question. Would you consider not paying municipal tax in protest for police corruption?
It's hard because the city tax, the municipal tax in Rio, in Brazil, refer for, we call IPTU, we call a tax for the house.
What does PTU stand for?
We for example, if I have a house, a percentual, a part of the price of the house, I have to pay for the money for the city all year.
Yeah, okay.
So
It's normal. Everyone has to pay an estate tax. We say estate tax.
state tax, but it's a municipal tax here in Brazil. The money go to the
No,
city.
I didn't say state. I said estate. Imobiliário. Estate.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes, imobiliary tax, and it's a municipal tax. So if you don't pay this kind of tax, we have some problem with the city. If past some years, you can lose the house.
Yeah. That's what happened in the state as well. So you're saying the problem is that if you don't pay, you're going to lose your house. But what if you and everyone else you know decide not to pay? Would that be an effective protest? Do you think that's a reason not to pay tax, or do you think the tax it's not going to target corruption? Because that's what Wesley Snipes said he was doing. I'm not going to pay tax. I don't know exactly what his reasons are, but if you in the beginning of the interview, he says this is a problem that goes back to the founding of the country, right? America was founded because of a war over taxation. And so he said, as a true patriot, you really don't pay tax to the federal government. That's his argument. Because when we were taxed by England, they were taking our money, and it was an unfair situation. We stopped paying tax. We went to war, but we won. So tax is something that's very culturally important for us, and we shouldn't have to pay it if we don't want to. Something like that. I don't really know what his argument was. But in your case, not you specifically, but do you think it would be a good idea to get everyone together, stop paying municipal tax until the corruption ends? Or do you think it won't work?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of claim very hard for all people do. I don't know if it will be work.
Well,
if it will work.
I guess you have to decide if enough people do it, I suppose it might work. So I've got lots of questions there to think about. I've divided my questions on the worksheet into yes/no questions, what, how,
Yes.
all of those. And the last one is, tell me, describe for me what would happen in your country if everyone stopped paying taxes. If everyone stopped paying tax. So here's what I'd like you to do. If you're interested, I'm going to give you a homework to do. And your homework you can send to me on Facebook or Google+, and I'll correct it. But I want you to write a response using as many of the words in bold as you can. In the text, you've got hot water, tax haven, wrinkle, compensation, earnings, tax dodgers, dodging, hedged fund, all of that. Use as many of those words in bold as you can to respond to the last question. Describe for me what would happen in your country if everyone stopped paying tax. Because we don't have time now. The class has to stop.
Yes.
But if you want, do it as a writing, send it to me, and I'll correct it. And I'd be interested to hear your opinion.
Okay.
All right. Use those words in bold. You have to try to actively use that vocabulary. That's your goal. Deal?
Okay, deal. Deal.
So maybe I'll see you in the next private lesson. I'm going to call this Aulas com Luís. We have our own private lessons.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you
All
for
right.
the class.
See you next time, Luís. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.